Hello, everyone. Welcome to our broadcast tonight. We'll have a few more seconds while everyone joins, connects to their audio. Thank you very much for being with us. You do not have to be on camera, but we would love it if we could see your faces to interact with our panelists, ask them your questions directly. We're very glad to be here and share some amazing resources and experiences with you tonight. All right. So we are recording this and we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome to our second career summer gathering. It's kind of like a brand that we do. This is our second year doing career summer gatherings for our current scholars. And what this is focused on is making sure that you all, in your pursuit of different career fields, you have, let's say, role models. As dreamers, as first generation students, we usually don't have role models for the kind of career paths that we want to pursue. And so we're very lucky to have alumni of this amazing program that are working today, particularly in the STEM field, that is able to come back, give their time and share their wealth of knowledge and advice with you. So career summer gatherings are happening every 2 weeks on Thursdays. And so the first one we did was on networking, which was really special. And so we'll share that recording in the Facebook group. It's also on the TheDream.Us YouTube channel if you missed it. And today we're kicking off the career specific ones with STEM. So right now we have a software engineer, we have a mechanical engineer, and we have 2 research scientists who are alumni of TheDream.Us who have graciously appeared tonight to talk to you about their experiences, what they're doing now, how they got their jobs, and to give you tips on you for pursuing your career in STEM. So right now I'm going to try to do something. I'm going to try to spotlight our panelists so it makes it easier to see them for everyone. So we're all going to be in a little group here so you know who we are. All right. And then I got to spotlight myself.
Oh.
All right, so I'll be moderating tonight. My name is Sadana Singh. I hope most of you know me by now. I am Senior Communications Manager at TheDream.Us. I'm also a Dream.Us graduate. I got the scholarship way back in the olden days of 2014. And I graduated in 2018 with my bachelor's in communication at Trinity Washington University. So now I manage communications for TheDream.Us, and I absolutely love my job. And I love doing things like this, where I get to be with my fellow graduates and share amazing knowledge with you all. So first, I'm going to tell you who they are, where they work right now, and then I'll have them tell you the rest. So we'll start with Evelyn. So Evelyn right now is in sunny California, and she is at Stanford University. And then let's see, we have Luis, who is in Rhode Island. He's in the Northeast. And then he is working at Moderna. And then we have Omar, also in California. He's a mechanical engineer at KLA. And then we have Juan Matisse, who is in Connecticut, working with cybersecurity at Cigna. Hopefully some of these names are very familiar to all of you. And then I'll let our alumni tell you more about what they do. So let's start with Evelyn. Evelyn, tell us, first of all, you'll see a common theme here tonight about location and relocation. So first of all, tell us where you're originally from, where you are now, and tell us your college and your major. So go ahead, Evelyn.
Yes. Yeah. So, I'm originally from North Carolina, and I actually went to Connecticut for my university, Eastern Connecticut State University. And then I graduated from there, and I got a job here at Stanford University, where I'm now a research assistant in the microbiology and immunology lab, where I study the gut microbiome and how the bacteria that live in your gut or your small intestines impact your health through the immune system. And yeah, I graduated last May 2020 with a Bachelor of Science in biology.
Awesome, thank you. Luis?
So I'm originally from Arizona. I guess from Mexico, immigrated to Arizona. I graduated from Arizona State University, which is in Phoenix, the capital. And and I graduated in 2018 with a bachelor's degree in biochem. Then I worked in Arizona for like 3 years, and I just recently moved to Rhode Island. I'd offered a job at Moderna, and I accepted. With them, I guess you could call me an analytical chemist. So we basically test the drug product and their development to make sure that it's what they were looking for or what they were looking to make. So a lot of just research and development and process development. That's actually my title, is Research Associate Process Development. Yeah, that's about it.
And you graduated from ASU, Arizona State. And what was your major at ASU?
Biochemistry.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Let's go to Omar.
Yeah, hello. I'm from Berkeley, California. I'm from Mexico too. I just graduated from San Francisco State University last year, May. And I just got a job at KLA working as an assistant engineering, working with a lot of, it's like technical stuff at the moment. It's an entry level position. But I mean, everything that I've been learning, I never learned this in school, and I'm just so grateful to have this opportunity. But yeah.
Thank you. And let's go to Juan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Juan. I was born and raised in Bogota, Colombia. I moved to the United States when I was 9 years old to Atlanta, Georgia. I eventually got accepted to TheDream.Us and moved to Connecticut to study at Eastern Connecticut State University. I graduated in May of 2020 with a degree of Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. And I've been part of Cigna's Technology Early Career Development Program ever since my junior year of college, which was it's a internship / on-premise internship program where they rotate you across the organization within the technology space, and you get to just get experience of a whole heck of a lot of stuff related to tech. So it's been a great couple of years so far.
That's great. I'm actually super impressed with all of you. This is not my field at all, but you all make me very proud to be your fellow graduate. So I'll start with, first of all, for those of you watching tonight, your networking starts here because this is your network right here. So if you have a LinkedIn, this is a great time to drop it in the chat. Let's connect with LinkedIn, especially if you're in the STEM field and you want to get to know our panelists tonight. So I'll actually start with Omar because you recently had a hard time finding a job in your field. Took you a little bit after graduation. So the first thing I want to ask you is, how did your major help you find your job? And how did you, what led up to you finding your job? What did you do to eventually land your job?
Yeah, I mean, I graduated as soon as COVID hit. It was a really hard time at that moment. To be honest, when I was in college, I only did one internship. And that was really hard because most of the companies where you apply requires you with a lot of experience. So it took me around 6 months to even find a job, even get my step in the foot, on the company. But something that really helped me out is I started contacting a lot of people from college, people that I just one day interacted with them. I know they graduated a long time ago before me, and I reach out, I send my resume, I send my cover letters to everyone. And at the end of the day, one of my friends, at that time we only talk, but he reminds me I'm a hard worker and everything. And he recommended me to KLA company. And as soon as he recommended me, I got the job, the offer and everything. And most of my friends also contacted me and they're like, how do you got that job? Because they already applied for that company before and it was really hard for them to even get an interview. So the main lesson I learned is it's a good thing I reach out to my friends. Because again, it took me around 6 months to find a job. Even people that I didn't really talk a lot, but I know they were in the same major as me. They gave me a lot of hands. I even had to fix my resume, had to fix my cover letters. So that's something to also reach out and everything. And don't be scared to ask for help. That was the main thing I learned from there.
Absolutely. And Omar is highlighting something we learned in our first career session, which is networking. So we learned in the last session that 80% of jobs are not posted online. So you may be combing through Indeed, or LinkedIn or, some of these other job sites, and just know that those are about 20% of jobs that are out there on the market right now. So Omar did the great thing by persevering through his 6 months and connecting with folks that ultimately led to his job. And then now I want to talk about, I'll go to Juan. So Juan, how did your major, you talked about rotating in different areas right now at Cigna. So how does your major play into that? Are you using your major? Is it something you intended to do? Tell us about what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Right. So computer science is more of a general degree in terms of computing and software development. So we were really taught just a little bit of everything, just so we had the basic foundations that we could eventually focus on further on in our career. So I would say that that foundation was really important, just because a lot of the companies have expectations that you might not know everything right off the bat, but just be good enough at simple aspects of computers, software engineering, software development could really go a long way. And then they make sure to teach you what within the organization, what the best procedures are, what sort of deployments are doing, sort of the mantra of the company. That's always taught by them. So I think, honestly, I've learned so much in those 3 years that it would have been a lot more difficult if I didn't have that foundation that the professors at Eastern made sure that I was aware of.
Got it. And so I want to go to Luis and ask, so you've moved across the country, let's say, for your job, and it's something, as a chemist, it's something that you started out, you wanted to do. Tell us, what are the pros and cons of your job right now? If you can be as honest with us, tell us, what do you love about it? What do you not like about it?
Well, no, I mean, I really, since high school, I really was that nerdy kid that liked chemistry. So this whole field just suits my personality and what I like. So I really enjoy what I do, don't get me wrong. But I think starting off, I didn't know how hard it would be to stay in state and be able to use my degree and get the, I guess, everything's really about money. So to get the money that I wanted to be able to be successful and to thrive within my community. And so I decided to leave, and I knew that was something that I was going to have to do at one point in my life, because Arizona is not big in STEM. A lot of states don't have hubs where it's biotech hub. For example, Boston, which is where Moderna came from, is just full of small startup biotech companies that just are just all research. All the money that they can get goes into Boston and little cities like that. I know, for example, the Bay Area has another hub, and it was choosing between where I wanted to go. Because essentially, to be able to use my degree and maybe be more successful than I could have been in my state, I had to leave. So that's something that I didn't think I was going to be honest. But just the people I've met, everyone has left. All my all my lab partners no longer live in Arizona. Either they were just there for school, or they went back home, or they moved elsewhere. But I feel like that's something that you have to keep in the back of your mind is if you don't live in an area where it's good for engineering or good for business or good for whatever your degree might be, it'll be hard. For Arizona is huge in business, and it's huge in insurance, not really big in labs. And the labs that are there are very much security or homeland, like Raytheon and Northrop Grumman and big engineering.
Defense type.
Defense type, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't tell you this, but you need to be a U.S. citizen to get into those companies, or a resident, and so that kind of just
for sure
cuts your options in half.
Yep. So for the attendees, if you're pursuing a STEM field, have you encountered this as well? Where you are right now, you can tell us in the chat. Is this something you've learned that maybe your location is not so much with your career field? Have you considered moving? Because that's something that Evelyn also did. So Evelyn, I want to ask you the same thing. Did you know that you were going to have to relocate because you were in this particular field? And then tell us the pros and cons of what you do right now.
Yeah, totally. So I feel like I'm a person who really likes to travel. And so I think from the start, I was always like, oh, like I want to get a job, like somewhere different, that like somewhere outside of where I live, because I want to experience like a new area, like, especially because like being undocumented, we can't travel outside of the country. So traveling within the country was pretty much like what I could do. And that's like something that I was really interested in doing. And so I think when I first started doing research, well, I didn't know much about research. And so I started doing research with my mentor in undergrad, and I started going to conferences, and that's where I got exposed to how you can talk about your research at these conferences, and you can also travel. And a lot of times these conferences are held in like really cool areas. Like I know that one of them was held in like Hawaii, sometimes in Chicago. So it's like you have the opportunity to like do what you're really interested in and travel. And also with these conferences is they offer scholarships for minority students, or and which like pays for your traveling expenses. So like the traveling like via plane or whatever, they can usually cover that. So I think I kind of went into it like, oh, I'm probably going to move. And for me, that was like really great because that's something that I wanted to do. And I think it's also pretty common if you're in the research field to move somewhere than where you've previously been. As far as like, especially like being here at Stanford, whenever a graduate student finishes their graduate degree, they often move to a completely different state. And then we have new graduate students or postdocs coming from also different universities and states as well. So I think it's also very common to move outside of where you're actually from.
And then as your day-to-day, what do you love about being in your lab where you're outside of right now? Tell us what you love, maybe what you don't like.
Yes. I think with research, there's a lot of pros and there's also a lot of cons. I think what I really love is that I actually do use a lot of what I learned in undergrad. So a lot of the laboratory skills and the laboratory or the science concepts that I learned in my basic biology classes, I find myself doing or using them in the lab. Like for example, in your genetics class, you learn how to extract DNA and then run that DNA on a gel to figure out the size. And like, I'm actually like doing that. Like I was doing that like yesterday. And so it's like, I am using a lot of what I learned. And I'm like really thankful that I had the laboratory sections within my classes to be able to do what I do now. I think the cons within research is that sometimes like experiments don't go well, and that's a huge percent of the time in research. And I think it can get a little hard to like, I guess, get past these bumps where you're not sure what's going on. And like, I think you kind of reach like an imposter syndrome where you're like, oh, I can't do this. Like, I'm not good enough. But in reality, like you are. And like it's just a matter of like, I guess learning to get past those bumps and like also falling back on the I guess like your social circles and the people who support you to help you get through those times. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And Omar, if I heard correctly, you said that it's what you're doing now is not exactly what you learned during your coursework at college. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, in college, depends exactly what you do. I mean, when I did my senior project, because of COVID, I didn't have the opportunity to really like put my hands on materials. It was going to be something that it was going to be creative, but since COVID hit, it changed most of the plans for my campus in general. I mean, I had the opportunity to work in another internship and also give me the experience for that. But now that I'm in the field, I feel like I'm learning more, just putting my hands on tools.
That's great.
Even with research, you do a lot of mistakes also on the field. and it's good. You know, you learn from those mistakes, even though sometimes it can take time to recover. Uh, it's a good thing you learn. I mean, the good thing about my manager right now is that he knows that I'm new, and even though I'm doing those mistakes, he knows that this is going to have me become a better engineer later on. So that's why something grateful for the opportunities. Yeah.
So I'm gonna like drill in a little bit more. Can you tell us what the field is for those of us who don't know? What is your day-to-day like?
Yeah. So I work KLA. It's a semiconductor company. What that does is they work with chips that go inside your phones, cars, anything, computers. So I
Oh,
work with machines that it's like a big camera, to be honest. And I just work with lasers, troubleshooting a lot of problems, um, aligning a lot of things. So it's a lot of hands-on tools for now. But inside the company, there's ways you can grow. One of my friends who recommended me, he's already like an MD. That's for like when you become an expert and you just help people have problems. So there's a lot of things to grow in there, but that's something that I'm looking forward. And they even offered a master's degree later on. So they also give you the opportunity to grow inside the company.
oh, that's great. I think you've landed a perfect position then, worth the wait, huh? And so the next question is about licensing, certificates, that kind of stuff. Often, as undocumented students, getting out in the work field, it's hard to navigate how to get a license or a certificate for a particular job that we want to do. So this is for anybody. Did you need, in addition to your degree, did you need any other extra certifications or licensing to do what you do now?
I can go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I just want to say, well, I mean, for computer science, it's really up to you if you want to get some certifications. They're certainly encouraged, and for some positions, almost required, really. But oftentimes they are given by a private entity, so you really don't have to be a resident or a U.S. citizen to take them. It's just the only challenge is potentially paying for them. These certifications could be somewhat expensive. And usually what you would try to do is for your company or whoever institution to try to pay for them. Oftentimes they're very open to you taking a certification that is related to the role that you're in, and they will reimburse you for that cost. But yeah, it really depends on what you try to specify within computer science or computers in general. There's a whole host of cybersecurity certifications that can get you a foot in the door at pretty much anywhere. If you want to be a network engineer or a cloud engineer, definitely getting Amazon, AWS, or Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure certifications open a whole lot of doors. That's where the future is in computers, really, in the cloud. So if you can snag a couple of those before you even start applying to companies, that will put you apart by a mile.
Yeah, I don't
great.
what he said. At least for me, and yeah, like what Juan said, like that cloud thing that he's talking about. I have a friend that works at Oracle, and he also had to get their cloud certification. So a lot of people do get.
Yeah.
I have a certification in Lean Six Sigma, which is basically kind of like predicting how an experiment will go and then analyzing the data. But a lot of the times, bigger companies don't let you access their data sets without having a certification and knowing how to do it. So for example, Moderna paid for my yellow belt and then green belt. And then if you become a black belt, that's just like, might as well be a professor. Like you're like,
whoa,
it like you level up relatively quickly. And then there's also others, like if you want to go into more project management in your field, then there's project management certification, a CSM or whatever it may be. But I feel like certifications are not necessarily a must. It just really depends on what you want to do with your career. If you want to go more into a management field, if you want to go more into analysis of data or whatever, or if you just want to open up your doors, I recommend them. I highly recommend getting certifications. I feel like it's something that has benefited me at least.
That's great. And it's so interesting that once you do get your foot in the door at one of these companies, they do have, benefits and incentives for you to then increase your knowledge or, increase your skill level and that kind of stuff. So a question again to all of you, for those juniors, seniors in the attendees right now, what should they be doing to prepare if they potentially want to be in one of these jobs? I know networking is huge. It's never too early to start networking, but any other concrete things that they should do to prepare? Anyone can take this.
Can I say something real quick? I'll be quick. So my biggest issue when I graduated was the lack of experience. And I know we all have our different circumstances. Like I had to work 40 hours and then go to school 19 credits to finish. And then it was impossible for me to get experience in my field. And I found it relatively difficult. Like it took me, 4 or 5 months to land a job. And I ended up landing a job with a startup that my professor started. And that was like my network, because I didn't have the ability to network with anyone else in my field because I was working in insurance. So one of the things is definitely network, regardless of who it is, with your friends, with your lab partners, whoever, because knowing the right people can land you a job in a really good company. And that is essential. And another thing is, if you can and are able to get experience anywhere, whether it's working at a blood bank or if you're like, wanting to be a nurse or just working in a lab in your school, that gets you the sufficient experience that a lot of companies are looking for entry-level positions. For me, I landed a job at Roche because a person that I worked with ended up working there 15 years ago, still knew someone that worked there, recommended me, and that's how I got into Roche Pharmaceuticals. And then for Moderna, I actually got lucky. I was actually just asked this question last week. They asked me, who do you know in Moderna? Because not a lot of people get in without knowing anyone. And I was like, well, I don't know anyone. Like, I don't know anyone in this city. So the guy was like, oh, wow, that's really lucky and amazing, because it's hard to get into a company without knowing the right people. I feel like that's the key to everything, to be honest.
So basically those contacts, networking, try to get some internship job experience while you're in college, because it seems like employers really like to see that once you're actually applying for a full-time job. Do you agree, Evelyn?
Yeah, I was actually going to add to that. I think, speaking from like the research field, I think really having research experience, whether it is with like your professor in undergrad or gaining a research experience during the summer, I think that is a really good way of like gaining valuable experience that a lot of jobs look for when you first start applying. I think like in my situation, I applied for a summer internship, I think the summer after my junior year, and it was actually here at Stanford in the same lab I'm working in right now. And so I think part of that was like gaining experience of full-time research, where I'm actually doing research every day as a job, basically, which you learn a lot more than like your 3 years at your undergrad. And then also I got to meet the PI. I got to like know the lab, like know what the lab is trying to understand, or the research involved in the lab. And so I think, at the end of the summer, I knew I was gonna probably take a gap year since I'm applying to medical school. And so I wanted to continue my research within that gap year. And so I had the chance to talk with my PI and tell him like my situation, that I was gonna finish my last school, but I was probably gonna want to do research afterwards. And I asked him if he would have any positions after I graduated. And at first he was like, oh, I think I'm gonna like reduce my lab. I'm not really like looking to open up any positions. But then I emailed him like a couple months before graduation, and he actually ended up having extra spots or taking me in. And one of the, I think going back to one of the things we talked about earlier was like the job that I got, they weren't really offering it. They actually had to write up my job and like submit it to the school for me to get the job and like apply for it. So I don't think that I would have gotten this job if I hadn't done the summer internship. You can also gain experience through conferences if you're doing research. I know I'm about to list some here in the chat. share. Yeah, so these two I know are really aimed at minority students and students of color. And I think part of the conferences is you learn how to talk about your research in a good way that a wide variety of people can understand. You also get to network because you talk to a bunch of people, a lot of professors from different universities, different fields of research. And so that is a good way to start networking. And then like you also meet other students and you get to talk about your research and what experiences they've gone through. So I think that's also really helpful. And then one last thing, to add on like the networking, I don't think it's just about like having professors and like your mentors. It's, I think, also valuable to have your friends, even if they're not like within your research field. Because I also, when I was looking for summer internships, I was specifically looking for ones that were DACA friendly, because with research, it's really complicated in terms of like the funding, because a lot of the funding comes from the government, which we can't like receive. We can't get paid through government funding. So it has to be more of a private funding. And so one of the other internships that I almost, that I got accepted to, but I didn't end up going to, was at NYU. And the only reason I found out about that research program was talking to my friend who was a political science major. And I was telling him, oh, like I'm like kind of stressed out because I'm trying to look for a summer internship and I can't really seem to find any that are like DACA friendly. And he was like, oh, I actually know of a friend who is applying to this program, and he sent me the details. And so I think like even just expressing things like that to your friends is also really valuable. So talking about your friends, about your interests and what you're trying to look for can also be really helpful, and another way of networking.
I agree with that, Evelyn. In my own undergrad, I would tell anybody that I talked to that I was looking for an internship, looking for a job, looking for like, anybody not even in my field. I just wanted to put as many like feelers out there as possible. So I completely agree with that. That worked out well for me as well in college. Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned something about DACA friendly. So again, a question for all of you, and maybe I'll start with Juan. Did your status impact you getting your job at all? Did it hurt, help? Is that something you even talked about? I'll have all of you comment on this a little bit because I know a lot of our scholars worry about this. So I'll start with Juan.
Yeah. It was a little nerve-wracking filling out the application, just because they right off the bat they tell you we're not looking to sponsor anyone, and if you do get in, we're not going to sponsor you ever, pretty much. And it's like we're it's such a great area where, yes, we technically don't have a permanent status or some sort of legal status, but we still are allowed to work with a social security number, an employment authorization card, that to a lot of companies, to a lot of people, they can't differentiate between DACA recipient and a regular employment person with employment authorization card. So when they asked me a question like, oh, are you allowed to legally work in the US? Of course, I clicked yes. But I do know that once I went through the interview process and they started asking more questions and I showed them my card and my social security, they started asking more questions like, oh, well, we're not looking to sponsor. I was like, no, that's fine. I'm not trying to get a sponsor from you guys. I just want to get a job, unfortunately. And I do know of a friend who also was applying with me at the same time, and he actually the interviewers ended the interview early when he told them his status, and I told him like, no, you're legally allowed to work here. Let's work together. Contact because my university has a huge partnership with Cigna. We have actual like on-campus location that's Cigna, where you can like log into the corporate network via Wi-Fi. So it's like, let's talk to this person, let's talk to the professor that is in charge of this partnership. So they're aware, like there are these individuals who've come to Eastern who, yes, they don't have a permanent status or a green card or whatever, but they are legally allowed to work, and they shouldn't. There's really, the difference is in the details. So once we told them that, then the person got in contact with the recruiter. They called him back. They're like, hey, listen, we're sorry. You want to interview with us again? Please feel free. So he interviewed. He went through the process, and thankfully he's still at the company to this day. So persevere. Also, don't let like companies or individuals like trample you over your rights as well. Do try to find workplaces that are friendly towards like DACA and immigrants, but again, these companies can be so huge that people just aren't aware of the differences between statuses. So it's just worth a shot applying no matter what.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I see a lot of nodding. So Luis, you want to add something?
Yeah, I actually had a very similar experience to your friend there, Juan. So it was different because I was in Arizona attempting to apply to whatever was out there, and so I was applying to positions in Raytheon and Intel that didn't require being a citizen or a resident, but there was one that didn't specifically say it, and then so I applied. I got an interview. I got a second interview. I got a third interview. And then on the third interview, they're like, hey, we haven't asked you, do you have a green card? And we're just like, oh, no. And they're like, oh, well, this position requires such and such. And so like, it was upsetting, but at the same time, like Juan said, like you have to persevere. I feel like that's part of our like who we are is just try to still apply, even if you don't get the job because of that reason, or if even if you don't get the job for whatever other reason, interviewing just gives you that much more practice on how to speak to people, how to respond, how to ask questions, have to ask questions. I think at Moderna, I didn't talk about my DACA. I usually do in interviews, and then I decided not to. Mainly because I didn't want that to be a reason why they would think, okay, we only have them for 2 years. And as sad as that sounds and upsetting, I just chose not to. I talk about it now. Like my coworkers know that I'm DACA. My manager knows that I'm DACA. And surprisingly, people here in Boston and in the Northeast, they know a lot of like what that entails and what that means for them and for us. And it's really nice to work for a company that actually understands what you're going through and basically just like, hey, I know we can't like technically or legally help you, but we're here for you. We know what this is, and we know maybe how unfair it is. So it's nice. I speak about it. I talk about it, and it's part of like who I am. So I would suggest, like Tanya said, when they ask you if you need a sponsor, always answer no. You don't need a sponsor. Legally, it's not something that you're required to have. So just say no. That's the truth. So
that's correct, Luis. So yes, for anyone out there, if you have valid DACA work authorization with DACA or TPS, all they care about is that you have the right to work in the United States. You don't have to disclose your particular status. They're not allowed to ask you for any further information. It's not something that you need to disclose. It's totally up to you. Like Luis later on, after he got the job, then he disclosed it. So it's totally up to you. And then I found the same thing, Luis, because I'm originally from Georgia, which Juan is also from Georgia. And in Georgia, my life was very secretive. As an undocumented person, I come to the Northeast in Washington, D.C., and I feel much more free to talk about my status and to share things about myself, and people understand and a little bit more supportive. So I totally relate to that, Luis. So we're a little past halfway in our session. I'm going to open it up for questions right now from the attendees. So you've heard a lot of different backgrounds here, a lot of different jobs that our alumni are doing. Please put your questions in the chat for them. If there's a specific person you want to talk to, let me know. You can also do the little raise hand on your dashboard so you can speak up. I did see that Alexander in the chat wants to pursue civil engineering. So yeah, tell us in the chat what you're looking forward to doing as a career. If it's anything that was mentioned here today, what questions do you have? So yeah, let's see what comes in. And then oh, sorry, go ahead.
So I was just gonna say, or feel free to share us what you want to do. You don't have to have a question. Just tell us who you are, what you want to pursue in, and we can connect that way. And the other thing I also wanted to mention is I've been sharing several times in the chat a Word doc that has lots of links for conferences, for research opportunities, for different trainings. A lot of these are links that the panelists have given to us of resources that they use to advance in their careers. So go ahead and open that Word document that I just shared. And I see a question came in the chat. It says, hi, I came in. So, well, can someone please repeat what jobs each person holds? So good. So let's just do a quick.
Yeah, awesome. Great question. Let's start off. So just say what your job title is and where you work. Let's start with Evelyn.
Yes, so I'm Evelyn Lemus. I'm currently in California. I'm a research assistant at Stanford University, and my lab focuses on the gut microbiota, where we look at the bacteria that live in your gut and how they impact health and disease.
All right, Luis?
So I'm Luis Ursua. My degree is in biochem. I work for Moderna in Norwood, Massachusetts. And my title is Research Associate Process Development. So I do a lot of analysis of data and interpreting how good the product is, I guess.
All right, Omar?
Yeah, my name is Omar. I'm a mechanical engineer. I work at KLA as an assistant engineer, helping the machines and everything.
All right, and Juan?
Yep. Hello, everyone. I'm Juan. I graduated from Michigan Connecticut State University with a degree in computer science. I currently work for Cigna Health Insurance as a cybersecurity engineer.
Great. And I can see some questions coming in. Well, here's Evelyn. People want to know how you got your job at Stanford, and did you look up for the PI and email him, or how did you find the PI?
Yes, great question. So the job that I have right now at Stanford, I actually got through my summer internship that I did the summer after my junior year. And how I got that internship was I actually talked to some of my mentors in undergrad, and I told them about my situation being a DACA student and being interested in research, and if they knew of any research internships or DACA friendly research internships, if they could like send me the information over. And so I actually did have one of my mentors send me a list of internships that included research internships for DACA friendly students. And that's actually how I ended up applying to the internship, which is called Stanford Summer Research Program, or SSRP. But I think also with that, I talked with my friends about or with my peers and my friends about how I was looking for research internships. And they also knew of other research internships that I could have applied to. And so that's how I got my job. And so, I guess to go back to that, I completed my summer internship, and then knowing the lab and knowing the people and doing really well in the lab, I think that really put like my foot in the door for potentially emailing my PI later once I graduated if he had a position for me to take. And so that's how I ended up being here.
I also want to mention that we have a special partnership with the University of Michigan, where they provide summer internships and research positions at UMichigan for the summer for our scholars. You obviously have to apply and get selected, but be on the lookout. In every fall and the late fall and winter, we send information to all of you about applying for that UMichigan internship. So it's several of our scholars have done it, and some are doing it this summer. So it's a great way to get ahead in that situation. And
sorry.
Go ahead, Evelyn.
Oh, I was just going to mention that I listed the two summer research programs that I was thinking about attending in that Google Doc. So definitely take a look at that. It's called Stanford Summer Research Program, SSRP, and then the other one is NYU. I forgot the name, but it's at NYU.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now over to Luis. There's a question here about someone who's a biochemistry major and they don't know what they can do with that degree. So talk about all the opportunities if you're a biochemist or chemist.
I just bombarded him with like messages right now.
Okay, well, there might be others on the call that are in the same biochemistry or bio or chemistry degrees.
Well, yeah, I mean, it really just depends. I definitely want to get a master's degree. I think my overall goal in the beginning was to go into med school. I actually got my EMT certification and paramedic and went that route, and then decided that research was for me and indirectly helping patients. And that's something that I decided early on in like juniors, end of sophomore year, junior year. So you kind of have to just ask yourself, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to further school and go into like medicine, pharmacy school or whatever? For me, I decided to go more into pharma and research through a big company. But like I told you in the message, you can you can put research associate, manufacturing associates, technicians, research technicians, quality control. There's so many things that you can do. And then with that, I would say, find what you like early on and grow from there, because it's a field where you kind of have to like guide what you want to do. Like for me, my next step, I want to go more into management rather than stick with research. And that's something that in the last year, I've decided that it's something I like, because I've had people under me as like when I was a research associate 3, I had 2s and 1s under me and like guiding them in their assay development or in their process development. And I really like that aspect of it. So I mean, you can do a lot of things, man. It's a degree where you can even not use it at all, to be honest. Like if I get into management, I probably won't use it. But it also helps me get to that point. One of the things that I do want to ask or say at least is, I mean, the alumni or the TheDream.Us is an alumni network. Graduate. I don't know if you'll probably get that link later on in your career with school. But that helps network. I've met a couple people through there that actually live in the Northeast. So it helped me like at least understand that I had people close by and don't feel as like lonely. I think Evelyn can probably understand that. Is like I'm 2,000 miles away from my mom. Even I can FaceTime her as much as I want. I can FaceTime my brothers or whatever, and it's still not the same. But it helps connecting with people, whether it's at work, online, LinkedIn, whatever. Get connections, man.
And we also have an alumni who started his own business with his chemistry background. He's a sports fan and he had a chemical background, and he combined both to become an entrepreneur and start athletic wear that was based on using sustainable products. So you could do a lot of things with a science degree. Yeah, okay, so now let's move on. There's a question for you, Juan. You said you were computer science, and that's a very broad degree. And did your college give you opportunities to explore the different specializations within computer science, or how could you explore different specializations?
Right. So I mean, it depends on how big your program is. The program at ECSU is fairly small, so they really didn't have the faculty to have enough classes for specific aspects. But they did tend to introduce and teach what is hot right now in the computer science field: data science, machine learning, cybersecurity, software development. So even if your program does not offer what you specifically want, and at least for me, when I first going through it, they didn't have that many cybersecurity courses, and I still took it upon myself to make sure that some of the projects that they would give me, I would try to tie back into cybersecurity. My senior research class, the topic was fairly broad, so I got an opportunity to research cryptographic algorithms, look at the blockchain as another buzzword out there, the backbone of Bitcoin for all those who might be into cryptocurrency, and really just dive deep into that and really understand how that works and how it can be applied to what I was hoping to write my paper about. So don't feel discouraged. We are lucky enough that there's a lot of information out there for computer science, which can be overwhelming. It's been certainly overwhelming for me. Like, where do you even start to look at? So I think that if your program does not have specifics, do try to make sure that you get the foundations down for software development, for computer science. So if you never worked with GitHub, which is a source code repository, or GitLab or Bitbucket, whatever you are familiar with, make sure you know how to upload your code, how to create those repositories. Do try to have them as up to date as possible with some of the classwork that you've done. You can definitely share that with recruiters, put it on your LinkedIn for companies to go on and see the type of work that you did in your undergrad. Same thing for the cloud. Anyone can spin up an instance in AWS for relatively cheap. You can even get like free tiers with your student account and start learning how the cloud and deploying in the cloud works. So do try to, so I mentioned, Git repository for source code, the cloud, and well, definitely, like, I think the last one is CI/CD, which is continuous integration, continuous development. And you probably have been taught that in school, in your software programming course. But knowing the lifespan of a software that is developed and the techniques that the industry uses to make sure that it is up to date and is developed as quickly, as efficiently as possible, that will differentiate you from people who are just barely getting to know what that is. So that involves a lot of infrastructure, a lot of automation surrounding the cloud and AWS. So it's a lot, but once you start chipping at it, it starts becoming a lot more manageable.
Thank you, Juan. I see a couple of people here who are interested in medical school, and know that in 2 weeks, our next session is going to be careers in healthcare. And we are going to have a student who is in medical school currently. She is at Dartmouth, yay. And another one is someone who was thinking she was going to go to medical school, but then she decided to become a physician's assistant instead. So I would highly encourage you to join the career session we're going to have in 2 weeks. But in the meantime, Evelyn, you might know the answers to some of these questions that someone asks regarding medical school. Is some advice about shadowing doctors or finding doctors to shadow, and when is the best time to do research and internship during your undergrad years?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm currently applying to medical school. So I have definitely had the same questions you guys have. I think about shadowing doctors. I think the way I did it was I went to, my mom works at this church in North Carolina. And so I often, I would go to the church and I interacted with the community members at my church. And so one of them actually was a family practice doctor within in our little town. And so I actually ended up just asking him if I was interested in applying to medical school, and if he had any chance for me to shadow him. And so I ended up shadowing him for several hours, like a couple weeks, while I was home for the summer or during the winter break. But I know you can also, if you have like a family doctor or even a health clinic that you go to, you can often even ask there if there are any shadowing opportunities or working opportunities that you can do, especially I think like free and free clinics and more community health clinics. They they are often like understaffed. And so having help is actually something that they really look for. And so definitely like doing some research on like community health clinics nearby where you are. Definitely I would recommend doing that. And then just reaching out to the people who work there is a really good idea. For summer internships or internships in general, I think my recommendation would be to, if you can, to probably just do a summer internship, because especially like having a major in biology is really hard, and it's a lot of hours, a lot of lab hours, and it gets really difficult to try to do everything. I have definitely tried to do that. I worked and then I did research and then I had classes full time, so it gets really hard. So I think my recommendation would be, if you can, try to find an internship during the summer where you don't have classes, and these internships, you also get paid to do the research. So it's like you have a job and you get to gain the experience that you need. So definitely try to find summer internships. And then also, if you can't do that, I would just recommend that you take it within a semester that you can take an easier course load. So probably would not recommend like doing an internship and working or in volunteering while you're taking like organic chemistry or biochemistry, because you should really spend and devote the time to do well in those classes. And you can't do that when you have a ton of things to do. So yeah.
Thank you for that. And Angela, thank you so much for sharing that virtual physician shadowing program. I had heard about something about that and didn't know much about it. So that's, especially in this COVID times, having a virtual option to shadow doctors is great. So thank you for sharing that. Let's see, anyone else would like to share what they are thinking of their career or any other questions? And while we wait for those to come in, is maybe a question for Omar as an engineer. This idea of you graduate as an engineer, but maybe you don't end up doing a job as an engineer. Have you heard of other types of jobs that engineers can go into, or that are companies that want to hire them, but that are not engineer related?
In my experience, not yet, but I have a lot of experience with, people who graduated with different majors as engineers. As I have a close friend who graduated as an aerospace engineer. Mm-hmm. And even though he had that gap, that stopped him from applying for a lot of jobs, because most of those require government to be a resident. And he changed his complete major, even though he has an aerospace engineer field. He's working on as a manufacturing engineer right now. So at the end of the day, whatever degree you get, there's a lot of opportunities where you can grow, because as an engineer, you can go anywhere you want. For me, as a mechanical, I have experience in almost everything: electrical, civil, and that opens the doors for me more. And as the way my friend did, even though he is in aerospace, he wants to do that, but his status makes it more complicated for him. He just found another opportunities to apply and get this knowledge you need. And yeah, so when you see something close, you just know that there's going to be other doors where you can apply. Right.
Well, and what I can tell you is that engineers are highly sought after by financial companies and investment companies. Wall Street wants to hire engineers. So if not aerospace or electrical, you can always apply to join an investment bank, a brokerage firm, any Wall Street type of firm. Just know that in order to get jobs in those companies, you really need to start looking for those jobs, or the end of your junior year, because a lot of the hiring happens in the summer before your senior year. Okay, let's see. Go ahead, Luis.
Yeah, like at Moderna, there's a lot of engineers. like there's not just like scientists. Like my manager is a mechanical engineer, and he's like the smartest person that I know when it comes to anything science related. And so like it's something that like all of our STEM degrees are like, so you can go into a lot of companies and just there's all the instrumentation that we use. Someone needs to fix it because I don't know how. So that's what most of the engineers do at Moderna.
That's right. And we're coming to the top of the hour. I don't know if Sadana, you're thinking of closing the session. I know there's one more question here. What type, if someone here is a business major, Adrian, a business major, what kind of jobs can someone from a business major get in the science field?
I think sky's the limit. Not to be so broad, but program management, huge aspect of software development. You know, so when you do go apply for these internships or opportunities that, I mean, honestly, any company is always looking for program managers and managers. They'll just be upfront with them, but also be, as long as you're always willing to learn, they'll be willing to give you a shot. But yeah, I know a lot of people who aren't really computer scientists or engineers, but they're business information majors or business majors who just applied, took a shot. They passed the interview, and now they're program managers. They're leading a team of engineers, developing a solution, and they're getting their product out there within the company and hopefully out to the world eventually. So yeah, I feel like you have a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I would say any degree, you can do anything probably.
Yeah.
So the message here is stay in school and finish that degree no matter what it is. So we are right here. Yeah, as Tanya said, we're about to wrap up. Thank you all very much. I'm very thankful for this panel to share their time with us and their expertise and advice. For the panel, before we leave, can you all put your LinkedIn in the chat, please, so that our attendees can get in touch with you afterwards and start networking. And then thank you, Tanya, for helping with the questions. We are going to email out the resource document when we invite you to the next one. So Tanya, you want to talk about the next one? You mentioned that it's healthcare related.
Yes, we are having someone who is two psychologist majors. One that now works at a healthcare organization as an HR manager or coordinator. So, you know, in healthcare, but doing HR things. Someone who is in medical school, someone who is pursuing a master's as a physician's assistant, and someone who is a mental health counselor.
Yeah.
I think, and maybe we'll get one more or so. But
yeah, it's going to be another jam-packed session. We have lots of impressive alumni who are doing great things out there in the fields that you want to work in. So look out for our emails. We're going to be having these sessions every 2 weeks. And thank you all very much for being here. Good night, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
And thank you to all the alumni. You guys are amazing and show that it's possible to be successful. So thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.